All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to That's Not Real Trek. My name is Scotty, also known as EDC. Directly below me, the lovely Veronica. Well, yeah, see, yeah, the way you probably have it set up with the full screen Discord, we're probably beside each other because that's
Yeah,
the natural
you're over
thing,
here.
right? But on my setup, because of the way I'm only using one monitor, and if you look at any of the VODs on this, we're directly vertical.
Line.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So uh, that's the way I had to do it for this. Till I get a second monitor, the Cage was supposed to look into several times, and I've reminded him
Mm.
several times, and each time he feels like an asshole for not actually doing it, and but then he never actually does it.
He forgets everything.
I know, right? He's got to
Everything.
write shit down.
I
Yeah.
got this shit, okay?
Uh
Yeah,
huh.
all right.
Yeah. 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 Whatever.
84 years later.
Yeah. And we're just talking about like a potential used TV in the garage or the basement that might
Hmm.
work and yeah.
Gotcha.
But
Right.
to be fair, I could go out and just buy another one, right? And do the thing myself, but I haven't done that yet either because it hasn't been like a necessity to have a second monitor for my PC at home. So,
Yeah.
eh, it's all right. It's fine. Shut up, Cage. Uh, all right, so this is episode 16, and we are completing Discovery Season 2 this evening. So, yes, we left you on a cliffhanger. You can shut up about that too, Cage, last week with Such Sweet Sorrow Part 1. And where we left off was the culmination of this entire season story arc, and that is uh, the main problem being an artificial intelligence that needs to gain access to the sphere data that was downloaded itself to the Discovery computer, because that is what will create or what will allow this artificial intelligence to become the dominant presence in the entire known universe, and it will, in a future time, wipe out all of life. So, in order to do the take care of this threat, they have decided that Discovery, with its sphere data inside the computer, uh, can no longer remain in this time frame and must go to the future. So they have constructed a second Red Angel suit for Burnham to take and open the time portal to take the Discovery into the future and away from the AI. So that's where we're picking up with the second uh, part of the two-part episode, and that is the season finale, episode 14 of Discovery season 2. And then after that, we're going to look at three more of the short treks that are available. So before we get into that, what are you expecting from this episode and the conclusion of the story, and what would you like to see wrapped up with all this?
I'm expecting a pretty big time jump into the next section of the story. Answers about Spock, because we know that it looked like Spock was intending on going into the
Mm-hmm.
future, and we know that either didn't work out or something happened that split him into two versions, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So maybe some answers there. Um, but yeah, I'm really excited for the season finale.
All right. Okay, so then here we go with season 2, episode 14, Such Sweet Sorrow, part 2. Okay.
Woke up the dog, everything.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez.
I had to. It'd be so bad.
All right, so what'd you think?
Epic episode.
Yeah.
Uh, Pretty amazing. Yeah.
All right, so let's try to break this down now. First of all, we find out that in the heat of the moment, Spock realizes that Burnham is the one that had to go back in to the past with the current second suit to create the signals that caused everything in this season in the first place, which was primarily Discovery going to these various locations to either put something into motion or to get some kind of information in order to reach the point to where they were, particularly the fact that they got Jet Reno from the Hiawatha and rescued anybody that was left there. Um, Going to Kaminar to essentially free the Kelpians from Baul rule, and going to the Klingon monastery world, whatever that was named, to get the time crystal and everything that came after that. And only because it led up to this point where the Federation forces were getting overwhelmed until the Klingons and the Kelpians showed up in the battle. So, what did you see with that whole thing? You know, the storyline taking that paradox that's almost the chicken versus the eggs thing, and tying that into uh, this being the thing that saves the day in the end.
I thought it was really cool. I feel like it hasn't really been done to that extent in Star Trek, like as going back to like several different points throughout the season and tying everything together in a neat little bow and make it all work. Um, so yeah, I thought it was really cool concept of and great way to do that.
And to me, this sort of thing, anytime I see this sort of thing where they come to the end and they reveal what it is, and then you go back, I mean, almost like they did in the first season with Lorca. You go back and you watch the first season knowing that Lorca was from the mirror universe, and then you start to see all the little details pop out. So this one even more so this season, it makes you want to go back and watch the whole season again to then find all the little Easter eggs along the way that they were there the whole time, but we didn't see it as part of the whole until the end. Um,
Yeah.
and yes, I would agree. I think that was very well executed. At least from a storyline basis, the fact that they were able to tie all of this in, set it out in a 14 episode season, and say, okay, this has to happen here, this has to happen here, this is when this is going to be revealed to the audience, and all of that. So I thought they did that very well. Um, and and then we also figured out a couple of different things that were, shall we say, pieces of information that needed to be resolved. One, how Spock was being left behind because he was initially on Discovery and was going to go with them into the future. But he's in the shuttle next to Burnham, and then the shuttle gets damaged, and Spock needs to be beamed back, but we can't do that to Discovery, so he's beamed back to the Enterprise. Um, and the other piece of information is, why the hell haven't we ever heard about Discovery and the Spore Drive, and Spock having a African American sister who we've never heard of before, but was clearly raised by Sarek and Amanda. And so how did you see that portion of it? The tying up of all the loose ends with why we have never heard of Discovery and Burnham.
It makes sense. They have to do their best to like figure out a way to work this all in so that it does fill in those gaps and answer, the questions that people have. So I thought it was a smart way to do it. I feel like they tried to do a lot at once, as far as like, okay, the spore drive is gone, and like, Michael Burnham we're not going to talk about, and we're not going to talk about Discovery. We're not going to talk about any of this.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I was okay with the way that they did it. I thought it was probably the best option that they had.
Well, and obviously, just like when J.J. Abrams came out with the Star Trek movie in 2009, there were some things that just could not be explained away, such as the difference between what we saw in classic TOS, as far as the technology levels, which reflected just slightly above technology levels that were available in 1966. And that's what I think Star Trek has always been about, is just, kind of showing a future technology as best as we can present it with what we have on hand at the time, especially since uh, um, the original Star Trek had such a shoestring budget that most of the time it was plywood sets and the some of the cheapest materials they could find to create sets and costumes and whatever else. So I thought they did a fairly decent job of that, recreating as best that they could these things that had become iconic things for Star Trek fans to see over the years, but then taking it the step further and adding in the technological marvels like the little droids popping out of the Enterprise hull to go do repairs and stuff like that. And that's actually going to be in one of the shorts that we see here, the third one. I think it's kind of interesting that they decided now was the time to reveal that technology. Well, Discovery doesn't have that. This is something that's new to the Enterprise as one of the newest flagships of the Federation. Um, and it wasn't even seen in the original series. How many times, maybe, if we went back to watch the original series, could that have, technology have helped them, for the same reason that we forget we have transporters or shuttle pods or one or the other, or we come up with some kind of excuse as to why we can't use those things.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, the technology, I think they they really just want to showcase not only what is available with modern television and movie production, but also capture a whole new audience and say, this is as part of just the production business. We want to have, new audience members that we're trying to draw in, and this is maybe a way that we're going to do that by showing off these, fancy new things from the so-called future. In J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, I remember reading articles by people that were like, "This is not real Star Trek," because they were bitching about things like, and I could see their viewpoint, clear glass touchscreens on the Enterprise versus the buttons and the switches and the lights, that they had in the original series. And just a redesign of the Enterprise in general. But I mean, it's the same basic shape that it always has been. Yeah, we're gonna tweak things here and there to make it a little fun. And then J.J. Abrams, with his addiction to lens flares, was
Yeah.
was my biggest beef with it. But I, if you're going to do as much as you can to try to fit it into canon story, I'd say they've done a pretty good damn job over the years, even J.J. Abrams, because you can make it work. There are a few inconsistencies, a few little things that don't work here and there. Like the Klingons going from, looking like a greasy kitchen help to, Klingon warriors with their brow ridges, and now looking like the Gorn almost with their with the way they redesigned them for Discovery. Um, But yeah, I don't see the big deal, you
Yeah,
know.
well, and if with the advancements in the cameras too, like if you went old school and tried to make it look like old OG Star Trek, the high definition in the cameras, it's gonna make everything look like a Fisher Price toy. You have to up it. Like you have to make it look better because the cameras are better.
Right. Although there was one thing I remember you not so happy about was the aptitude for the cinematographers in Discovery wanting to display a scene by taking the camera and constantly rotating it
Spinning it around.
around and around. And
They did that in this episode too.
yeah,
She's standing there getting ready to get in the suit, and they're like,
yeah,
spin
yeah,
it around. Like, how many times are we gonna move around this thing?
yeah. So I get that. That's like J.J. Abrams with the lens flares. You know, somebody gets
Yeah,
it in their head that this is what they want it to look like,
special.
and
It's
yeah,
their little
nobody's
touch.
telling them sorry. That's a bit too much. And you're right.
Mhm.
You almost do get a little bit dizzy from all the motion that's on screen at the time. I have had that basic gripe about fight scenes in any movie for the longest time. It seems like you watch like maybe some of the karate movies, like Bruce Lee movies and things like that. It wasn't present. It's more of a modern thing where they actually start to move the camera around while a fight scene is going on. And yeah, they're
Yeah,
capturing a few things here and there, but it's almost like they want to give you a feeling that you're in the action and tumbling around with these actors.
yeah,
And that to me, I thought has always been kind of um, a drawback to most modern fight scenes because I want to see the action. I don't want to move with the action so
right.
much. Yeah. So I really appreciated the scene with the hall when Giorgio and the security officer are fighting Leland, and we were commenting on how that's one of those rotating rooms where
Yeah, the
they
old school
yeah
rotating room.
yeah. So that's clearly how they did that, but even better than that, the camera staying put with the room and
Hmm.
showing all of the action in the fight sequence between those three, and then the rocks moving from one to thing as the gravity is supposedly moving back and forth, or
Yeah,
going around, however they want to do that. I thought that was very well done because it showed all of the action the way it actually was. And yeah, there was some other things that were kind of distracting you with sparks and wisps of smoke and whatever else coming in, lasers and that.
hmm,
But I thought that turned out very well, and uh, kind of showed what is possible with an action scene when you're not trying to move the camera with the actors.
yeah.
Um, so yeah. All right. So um, we had a couple of things that cleared up relationships in this episode. Things that were also like dangling participles that we don't know where this is going or what's happening. So more resolutions as we're coming to the end of the season. In particular, Dr. Kalber deciding to stay on Discovery when he had told Stamets previously that he was going to the Enterprise. How did you see that? I mean, not so much like the reaction from Stamets, even though he was half in and out of it, but um, what did you make of Dr. Culber's decision and what that's supposed to mean for those two and their relationship moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, at first I did think it was like maybe a fever dream or like he hit his head or he was just hallucinating it all. But then, you saw him again a second time and it's like, okay, he's actually here. He's actually gonna stay. And I mean, he just kind of explained it like he had to work through his own things and now he's feeling better and, he realizes that what he truly wants. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a neat little bow.
Yeah, I think especially since this has become now a dividing point. I mean, it was almost a dividing point last episode with who are the crew that are staying on Discovery and who are the crew that are staying behind on Enterprise, and and then maybe in addition to that, any crew that we lost, like Admiral Cornwell. Um, so this dividing point is now speaking to who is going to be a regular crew member in Discovery season 3. And now that they're moving into the future and completely
Mhm.
out of the current timeline, that's even more stark because you do have the people that are on Enterprise and those on Discovery, which I mean, pretty much it's who the major players you would expect. We still have the entire bridge crew. Nan, who is now joining Discovery from Enterprise. She was an Enterprise security officer, and then we're also going to have new people coming into the storyline moving forward. Um, so, uh, especially when we see, I think, how Discovery has played out, it almost seems like the story of the romance between Stamets and Culber is as rocky as it can be between them and as many different crises as they go through. They're kind of meant to be together, and therefore even though they're spending time apart or figuring things out, they're going to come back together. So I'm very excited to see exactly how that relationship plays up now in season 3. Uh, Essentially, that they're both going to be on Discovery together, and now
Well,
and
and I think it makes sense because they're losing a lot of heavy hitters. They're losing Pike, they're losing Spock, they're losing Cornwell. I mean, those are like some major, major characters. So they need established characters that we can follow and continue on their storylines to make up for the losses that we're going to have.
well, and it's also not like it used to be where you had on TNG a 7-person cast
Mhm.
and a few odds and ends that come in here and there, but it mostly revolves around just those 7 persons. No, we're seeing a lot more character development, a lot more people coming in, and more of what we discussed previously, that The Walking Dead essentially started with major characters dying off and new ones coming in. um, I mean, back in the day, I had an Excel. I still have it somewhere in the cobwebs. An Excel sheet tracking where every single character came in and then when they died on Walking Dead. Um, you could almost do the same thing with this, and it's not. It's going to be complicated. All the various characters when they come in and when they might leave. So just something as simple as I think Commander Saru, going from the Giorgio and then to the Discovery and then dealing with Lorca, and now Saru is essentially the captain of Discovery now that Pike has been vacated. Um, so those kind of changes, I think they have been exploring as deeply and as complicated as they can. And then the relationship with Burnham and Spock, essentially coming to terms with each other, and Spock forgiving Burnham for what she did back when he was a child. Saying those mean words and essentially, abandoning him. Um, and yet we are faced with yet another major character flaw that's coming to the forefront with Burnham, even more so than her savior complex, which is her inability to let anything go. She did it with her mom, and she's doing it with Spock in this episode. No, I just got you back. I can't let you go. Okay, the entire universe hangs in the balance, Burnham. What the fuck are you doing with
Yeah.
your hang up on Spock?
Yeah, I think somebody said the needs of the many.
Yeah, I never did it come more into play. I mean, seriously, Burnham, what the fuck are you wasting our time crying? And she's got that almost puppy dog look in her eyes again and then again. This time she's looking at Spock when she, Spock, no, I can't lose you again. Really, Burnham?
Yeah, and at the same time, everybody's having these. All the other characters are having these like badass moments,
Right.
and then we've got Burnham sitting in this suit, just like crying.
Mm-hmm. I mean, seriously, it's like if Burnham is going to come into her own as a badass character, she has got to learn to set her emotions aside at least a little bit and stop letting them dictate her actions. I mean, I get it, and we make fun of this in the chat all the time. The sky is falling and the ship's about to explode, but we got time to talk about our feelings, man. Um,
Like, boom, up, 10 more people died.
yeah. Oh no, I'm sorry. We got a delay in.
Boom, there's
I
5
mean,
more.
conversations that last minutes in the middle of action.
Yeah.
And we're taking all this time with nice dramatic music and meaningful glances across the room to discuss how we feel about each other. I get it, the drama is part of it, but to me it just comes off as so unrealistic, and it really makes Burnham look like such a weak individual in real life. Um, and that reminded me when I was watching this episode again, because I haven't seen this for probably a good year or so. Um, it reminded me that if Burnham was essentially raised on Vulcan, and you consider, especially when she first came to Georgiou, as Sarah kind of like placing her in an apprenticeship almost of Captain Georgiou's, um, that she has gone from the um, the young girl who almost essentially watched her parents die. She didn't actually like see the thing, but lost them right in front of her, and is taken in by Sarek and Amanda to be raised and educated. So she's going to the Vulcan Science Academy to learn everything she needs to learn to become an adult. Goes into Starfleet, and the presence that she had in those flashback scenes with Sarek introducing her to Georgiou, very stiff, very extremely formal, almost condescending. And obviously she started loosening up a little bit and started showing a little more humanity as Georgiou was starting to like teach her this part of what she was. And ever since that point, then, almost from season 1, episode 2, it seems that emotion has become Burnham's biggest weakness.
Yeah.
And that almost everything she learned as a Vulcan, not only to suppress her emotion, but just to deal with it, it became completely irrelevant. And I gotta wonder if that's because of like those character flaws that person has, or simply because as a human, none of the Vulcan training that she had worked in the long term. But
Yeah, maybe.
that occurred to me in watching this episode. I'm just like, boy, for somebody who was raised on Vulcan for much of her youth, she sure as hell can't handle her emotions at all.
Wow.
So I'm just like, man, all these major character flaws, not necessarily flaws in like the writing or the story, the way it was presented, all that, but I mean, Burnham as a person is just like, really?
Yeah.
Really get over yourself. We got shit to do, man. So, all right. Did I miss anything? Any other thoughts on this episode?
I don't think so.
Think I
Yeah,
covered
I think we
everything.
major points there.
Oh, Jet Reno,
Yeah.
basically telling Captain Pike to get off her ass, sir.
Right. She's such a good comedic relief in the middle of like whatever's going on. She just always has those little zingers in there. I just love her as a character. She's great.
I mean, yeah, she adds so much to the entire series, and granted, she only came in what, season two, episode two or
And she
three?
really doesn't have that many scenes.
Yeah, no, she just
She
kind of
she
like
just
randomly
comes
appears
in,
whenever it's necessary.
yeah, comes
Um,
in, nails it, and then she's out.
right. And I think we discussed a little bit previously on Stamets being the guy that handles the spore drive, but now that Reno's on board, she's essentially like the chief engineer. Because we never really met a chief engineer for Discovery. It was an experimental science ship at the
Yeah.
beginning as a means to test the spore drive. And that reminded me of in TNG we had Chief Engineer Argyle for a lot of season one, and it wasn't until a little bit later that Geordi LaForge was made the chief engineer. Um, yes, exactly. Stamets is a scientist, not an engineer. And we see also, I think, in the character development of Jet Reno essentially filling that gap in Discovery's crew and interaction with other people. She's kind of like the baseline, the no nonsense person who grounds everybody. Like when she was telling Dr. Culber, okay, get off your shit. I lost my wife in the war. Figure your stuff out, okay? Because we got shit to do. Um, but even more than that, the comic relief role that has been played in other people. So in I'd say TOS we had primarily Scotty, and a little bit with the Doctor with his snark, and even to some degree Spock, depending on what you're watching and what the dialogue is. In TNG we definitely had Data and
Yeah.
Barkley. Um, in Voyager, it was the Doctor. You know, and now we've got Jet Reno here in Discovery, and kudos to the writers for with the foresight to see we need to have that kind of comic relief every now and then to lighten up the situation, and then having her play that role and fill it so well to be able to have that the and that also appeals to me on a personal level because the drier the humor the better, and she just cracks me up every time with her just deadpan expression as she releases a torrent of snark. um,
Right.
so good stuff. She's like that in real life too. Like,
Really.
if have you seen anything else with her in it?
No.
I haven't seen a lot, um, but I do know that I watched an episode of Ellen with her on it as a guest, and just that's her entire delivery system in a nutshell in real life. That's how she talks, and that's how she composes herself, and all of the snark is right there as well.
I love it.
Yeah. So. All right. So now, do you have any thoughts on? We've wrapped up season two. One, the complete wrap up of the season two story arc, and two, the complete wrap up from the beginning of Discovery until the end of season two. And now we've essentially completed all of what is Discovery in this timeline.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like honestly it seems like they didn't know if that was going to be renewed. And
Mm.
this could have been the end of the series, period. Like, oh, Discovery goes off, never to be spoke of again, seen again. It could have been the end right there. So it's kind of a very they can go anywhere with it now. You know, they're
Right.
gonna jump in the future and who knows what we're gonna get.
Essentially, yeah. Especially since they're going. Um, this takes place in, I believe, 2259, and they're jumping 930 years into the future.
Mhm.
Well, this is just 100 years before TNG and everything else that happens in the majority of the timeline that we've dealt with. So TNG in the 24th century was primarily happening in like, I believe it was, if I recall correctly, 2360 to 2390. So they're almost into the 25th century, but now we're talking about a whole nother 8 centuries past that.
Yeah.
And so we're essentially dealing with a part of Star Trek history that has never been explored before. Um,
Mhm.
and you're right, that does open it up to almost anything. And
Or we
and
could
I
get there and it's all Borg. There's nothing left but Borg.
yeah, it's either all AI or all Borg. It might be all Klingons. We don't know. Um, but I could almost bet on the fact that the creators did that on purpose because from what I've read and like YouTube videos and things that I've watched on this from people that are far more in depth in the Star Trek universe than I ever have been, it's that in after the success of J.J. Abrams' Star Trek in 2009. So we had the last TNG movie in the early 2000s. I think it was 2002 or 2003.
Yeah.
That was Nemesis. And um, there was this big lull in Star Trek. And I think the biggest thing on anybody with Paramount or CBS's mind, because we were still in the Les Moonves years there, he didn't want anything to do with it. Um, and a lot of the articles I read had to deal with how do you reboot Star Trek without and trying to fit everything into the canon so that all of the old fans are appeased. You're not creating something brand new and piss everybody off, but capture an audience because apparently Nemesis did not do very well in the box office. And it kept declining with each successive TNG movie, and they're like, okay, we need to hang this up and do something new. Okay, how do we do that? And nobody knew how they were going to do that until J.J. Abrams came along.
Mhm.
And even with the success of Star Trek in 2009, they still didn't necessarily know how to recapture that for television. A movie is one thing, where you're maybe putting in things that are one shot, like the comedy of Simon Pegg as Scotty in Star Trek, things like how do you recreate these characters and still fit them into canon and then capture that new generation? And I think they said, well, that's going to be a lot easier with a movie than a television series. And I don't think they really knew how to capture that in a television series until Les Moonves got the fuck out of CBS and we got some new blood in there, and then they're saying, okay, let's look at some new people. Let's bring some fresh blood in here to start giving us some fresh ideas.
Yeah.
And
I remember we went to the Trek Con and it was either right before or right after the JJ first JJ film was coming out. And everybody was just kind of like there was like kind of an excitement about and everybody was buzzing about like all this stuff's coming because Rod Roddenberry actually kind of I think got everybody excited again. And he actually, at that point, he hadn't wanted anything to do with it in the longest time. And then all of a sudden, he's like, yeah, okay, like, let's do this. And things started moving. And everybody was just like, you could just feel it. Like, everybody was so excited. It had been so long.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, once they did it, then it was like, away we go.
um, but yeah, the concept, when they were trying to put those things together, was how do we do it right? And even still, I hear to this day, I heard it from my own father. Now, granted, my father is a very conservative Christian, but the moment he heard about a homosexual relationship and Discovery, that was it for him. Okay, and how many other diehard fans of Star Trek over the years that probably share those same values are like, no, sorry, it's too different from what I loved. I'm not going to allow myself to get into that. Um, so it's almost like they had to change the status quo as to what Star Trek was going to become. I remember shortly after Discovery came out, and I think I maybe mentioned this previously, Patrick Stewart being on one of the Comic Con stages saying that, essentially releasing the information about Picard and saying it's going to be something very different from what you are used to. And he was warning fans to say this is not going to be what you want, essentially.
Mhm.
It's going to be something new, and you're going to have to deal with that. And are you going to be a little whiny bitch about it, or are you going to get with the program if you want to continue with new Star Trek? And
Yeah.
the I can picture it in my face, the video of Patrick Stewart on that stage and the look on his face as he was saying those words, because a lot of people knew that Patrick Stewart was not wanting to return to Star Trek after Nemesis, and the only reason he decided to do Picard was because it was not the same old Trek. It was something completely different. Or not completely different, but I mean different enough that it recaptured the interest and the imagination of Patrick Stewart as the person who would be driving that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think they showed him things that were done in Discovery to make it different enough. Not only things like modern politics, homosexual relationship or anything else along those lines, but just the policy of how they were creating new Star Trek and saying we're going to apply this same standard to Picard, because the two series are very similar in how they are produced, and him finally getting on board with that and saying, yes, this is something that I want to do and I want to be involved with it, um, even for the long term, potentially.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing though. Watching the season 3, I haven't even watched season 2 of Picard. So watching the season 3 Picard trailer, I am so excited to get into that stuff, and we're not going to do it yet because I'm an
Yeah.
asshole. All right, so what we are going to do, however, is we're going to tie up some loose ends of our own before we move on to something new next week. So we finished Discovery Season 2 now. We know that they are moving 930 years into the future, as long as that is a successful trip. We don't know, because what they left it at was Burnham and Discovery go through the portal and boom, we're done. Everything after that point was relating to the debriefings at Starfleet, and the Enterprise itself, with Spock cleanly shaven, and everything surrounding that, because that was the lead in to what we're going to start next week, which is Strange New Worlds and Captain Pike's captaincy of the Enterprise during its first 5-year mission. And we don't know anything else that's happening with Burnham and Discovery, and we're not going to find out until we start season 3. Um, and much to the chagrin of a certain person in our chat right now, we are abandoning Discovery at the end of season 2 here because it does not happen in this timeline anymore. They have moved that far into the future. Strange New Worlds, however, does. And so in trying to keep in I know I'm just joking with you, Cage. In trying to keep in this rough chronological order that I like to do with almost anything I watch, we're going to continue on with what's happening in the timeline now, which is Strange New Worlds. That is the latest series that CBS and Paramount have produced, which is a spin-off essentially of Discovery because it's showing Captain Pike. Um, and this was the big thing that I wanted to comment on when it came to why the writers decided to not only put this type of an ending on season 2 of Discovery, where yes, we wrap up that whole universe saving issue, but throwing them that far into the future, where this is a part of the Star Trek universe timeline that we have never explored before, so anything is possible. It seems to me that the new creators, or the creators of new Star Trek at CBS and Paramount, I believe Brian Fuller is one of them. I've never really looked much at the people who were involved in that process, to be honest. But whoever that is, all of these fantastic new producers and writers that have been essentially greenlit to do whatever they want in creating this new Star Trek world. I believe that their intention all along was to not only tell stories that have never been told, but to get back to the thing that made the original Star Trek so great. And that was, one, exploring modern political concepts in these storylines. So if we had people in America reading about the Cold War, then we're going to create an episode or a movie about the Cold War, but built into the Star Trek universe. So that portion of it, taking things that are modern day political issues in our world and building them into that universe's storylines. But also, the thing that, in my opinion, and I think a lot of other people's opinions, especially the concept of Gene Roddenberry from the beginning, strange new worlds, new civilizations, new species, situations and things that we have never faced before, and maybe there's nothing new under the sun and all of these stories have been explored in one fashion or another, but presenting them maybe in a different way. And I think both with Discovery season 3, 4, and now 5 coming out fairly soon, and Strange New Worlds, that is the entire concept. It's to get back to what Star Trek was at its core. This concrete mission of exploring things and seeing things and learning about things that we have never seen before. And I haven't seen any of Strange New Worlds on purpose. And I haven't seen, I think I did see, yeah, I saw, I think most of season 3 of Discovery, if not all of it. But I'm pretty sure that's the intended direction that they're going with all of this. So it seems to me like they kind of were wrapping up with these first 2 seasons of Discovery that older style of Trek, or at least what Trek had become, particularly in my mind with Deep Space Nine and the Dominion War and everything that they had to deal with that, where almost everything that the Federation faced on a daily basis was, how do we protect our people? How do we fight the war? And so many of the storylines became about that. Now, DS9 still did quite a few of the encapsulated episodes that TNG was so famous for, where we've got our problem of the day and then we solve it and then we move on. But they started back in DS9 with these season-long story arcs of what's going on with the Dominion War. In Enterprise, they did it with the Xindi. They had an entire season 3, devoted to this war with the Xindi. Um, and I think the creators were basically trying to get away from that and say, let's get back to Star Trek at its core: exploration, learning, discovery, understanding things about our universe that we never have even comprehended or fathomed. So that's what they're going for. Alex Kurtzman, yeah. Okay, so to finish up this portion of it, before we move on next week to start with Strange New World Season 1, we're going to watch 3 more of the short treks. And there's only 4 left. The last one, however, takes place much further in the future than even Discovery has jumped. So we're going to save that for the very end. So the remaining 3, 2 of them that we're going to watch now deal with Captain Pike and the Enterprise. The first one is actually taking place 2 years prior to just what we just saw. And this is Spock first coming on the Enterprise, and then kind of like a little vignette that is Captain Pike vetting a new potential officer. So we're going to watch these 2 short treks. We'll come back for a little more discussion and then watch the third one. There we go. All right. So a couple of glimpses into Captain Pike's Enterprise. What'd you think?
Pretty cool. I thought the first one was really funny.
I don't know, man. I had a hard time believing that even in that presence and that situation that Spock would break into song and laughing and smiling. I don't know, man. It was cute though. It definitely was
Yeah, it
cute.
was. For sure.
Um, what do you think? Because I mean, this is not the first time we're seeing her, but what do you think of number one's character as Rebecca Ramajan or whatever
Rebecca
her name
Romaine.
is?
Yeah.
Is
I
that
like
the
her.
name?
I think she does a good job so far. Haven't seen anything that I disliked. She's got kind of a good balance, I think.
She seems very straight laced, like almost has a lot of Vulcan qualities to her. Which, obviously there's different command styles in that, but I mean, uh, you remember how Riker was as an XO?
Yeah.
Especially in like season 1 and season 2. I mean, he was always the ladies' man and all that, but when it came down to command, he was very straight laced as well, I think.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of that in her, very by the book,
Hmm.
very intellectual, and it almost seemed like she had a little bit of a reverence for Spock as
Hmm.
this person who was coming on board and was going to be a huge contributor to how the ship operated and that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that test she designed, that was pretty clever.
yeah. And yeah, so that in the second episode, which was called Ask Not, um, yeah. How quickly did you catch on that Pike was acting a little bit out of character there?
when he started talking about, oh, she wanted to be in engineering, and I was like, is he about to bribe her? And I was like, he wouldn't bribe her. And then I started to kind of like think like something's off here. Something's not what it seems.
Yeah, especially, I mean, and not even just Pike, because clearly they want to portray him as a almost immaculate ethical captain. So,
My
clear,
first thought was like, why the hell is he arrested?
right. So they're trying to, and well, and at least the scenario they came up with sounded plausible enough, is that he was trying
Mhm.
to, live up to what he thought were the standards of a Starfleet officer in rescuing the crew, despite having received an order from an admiral to stand down. Um, and he was going to face maybe his own court martial, but isn't, they build that into the storyline so many times, officers disobeying
Oh yeah.
orders because they feel the command is wrong.
Mhm.
uh, so I find that, kind of interesting, plausible, and the scenario they built was plausible. But then the thing that, really does it for you is him basically mentioning revenge as a reason why she should, just basically let him go. And then it's like, yeah, no, that's not Pike at all,
No.
or any Starfleet captain that's worth his salt.
Right.
They just don't do
You
that.
could you could expect it out of Lorca, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, Lorca or
Mhm.
Picard, after going through what he went through, like that was a pretty decent representation of Picard losing his um, control over
Mhm.
his emotions in First Contact, and
Right.
trying to bring the Borg to heel because of what they did to him. Um, but still, that's very rare that we see that from a proper captain.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on those two small episodes before we move on here?
No, I mean, I thought they were pretty good, and they just add a little bit of flavor to the whole
Hmm.
story.
Yeah, and I think that was their intention with all of these short trek episodes, to add quite a little bit of a different perspective, and also different modes of presenting short
Mhm.
storylines that run in tandem with everything else.
Are
All
they
right,
still
so
making
then
these? Are they done with the short tracks? Are they
they
done?
haven't produced any more.
Okay.
So I believe there's 9 total.
Hmm.
And yeah, we've watched almost all of them except for the last one, Calypso, that we're not going to watch until the very end. But that is so totally unrelated to almost anything canon Star Trek. It's fine.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, they haven't produced any more since they came out with these back when they were producing season 2 of Discovery, and getting ready to release season 1 of Picard. Um, so there's these ones that we've watched that are related, and then a few that are storylines that are unrelated, but so far they haven't seen fit to even talk about potentially any other short treks. So all right, so then the last one we're going to watch here is called Ephraim and Dot. And it's very reminiscent of Wally from Disney in the type of relationship that is explored here. It actually, if you watch carefully, it takes place across a large number of years, starting in 2266, which at this point Captain Kirk is in command of the Enterprise, and all the way through 2285. So about a 20-year span that is covered in just this 9-minute animated video. And I put it here because I didn't really know where else it might have fit. But it's just a cute little vignette thing, that covers quite a bit of time, almost all dealing with the Enterprise, though. Um, so here we go, and we're actually, one of the characters is, we're going to be revisiting our good friend that we haven't seen in a while, the Tardigrade. that
Oh.
creature that was only barely explored in season 1 of Discovery. Here we go.
So messed up.
You're like, no, oh my god.
Was like, oh, excuse me, this is cute. And I was thinking, like, oh, little kids could watch this and enjoy it. And then I was like, oh, no, no, they can't.
Yeah, but at least they had the happy ending.
Yeah, happy ending.
Yeah. Yeah, so a nice span of almost the entire 20-year history of the Enterprise there, starting with Khan
Hmm.
being on the Enterprise. You had Sulu with the foil. You had the
Yeah.
Tribbles, and then the tardigrade basically chasing the Enterprise through a lot of its encounters. The Green Hand in space, the floating Abraham Lincoln, Doomsday Machine, and a bunch of other things, including the Reliant, Khan coming back in Star Trek 2 with the Reliant firing on the Enterprise, facing the Klingon Warbird in Star Trek 3, all the way up to its demise, where they blew up the Enterprise, and even the refit. Did you see the
Hmm.
nacelles? You know, going from the original to the refit Enterprise,
Yeah, that's cool.
and yeah, all the way up until the Enterprise is careening down into the atmosphere, uh, and uh, and the very end.
It's a
So
really long incubation period for
yeah,
eggs.
yeah, it seemed like it. But I mean, you know, suspending disbelief for you know
Mhm.
what that is. But it was a really nice romp through a lot of the great moments of Star Trek, making fun of the ones that should be made fun of,
Mhm.
um, and revisiting a lot of different things in there as part of this overall storyline. So what did you think of all of that?
I mean, it was a really cool style. It starts out as like a 50s, 60s, like science movie that you're watching in a classroom with the black
Educational,
and
yeah.
white film. Yeah, educational. And then you go into the color and then you go into the history. And yeah, it was, I mean, it really good.
And like I said, it reminded me a lot of Wall-E with
Hmm.
the almost slapstick physical comedy styles that they built into it as part of. It's almost you know got kind of like a Warner Brothers Wiley and Coyote aspect to it. The physical comedy that they go through fighting each other in this thing and then finally becoming friends at the end.
Hmm.
um, so I thought that was really interesting. Something that's never been explored on Star Trek before. Um, so to see that included as something that was not only sanctioned but encouraged by the people that are creating new Star Trek and putting that together, just beautiful. Um, and anybody claims that that's not real Star Trek is an idiot, because that was you know a very beautiful thing that people who have been creating Star Trek have put together for the fans. Um, and you know it's almost like people aren't going to see that because they've had it in their mind this whole time that nothing that's new that is coming out is any good, and it's almost like they you know form a brick wall in their mind, and well sorry you missed that because that was great.
Yeah,
um, but yeah,
absolutely.
that to me is the essence of this entire thing, and why everything that I have seen, even things that I don't really care for, like the motion picture, have a place in this Star Trek universe.
Mhm.
Whether it really fits the canon or it doesn't, or you don't like how it's produced or whatever, um, I really think everything does have a place in this. All right. It's actually getting kind of late for us, so I have a question for you. I wanted to play the trailer for Strange New Worlds. But there's two versions of that. There's one version that is only 2 minutes long, and there's another version that was put together that does a little bit more exploration on who the characters are. That's around 8 minutes. Do you have time for the 8-minute one, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. All right. So we'll do that. Let's.
Captain Pike, Lieutenant La'an Noonien Singh, Chief of Security.
Welcome back and welcome aboard, everyone.
When I was a kid, I was the only one to survive. I know what it feels like to be alone.
You are
Scared. But I can't just keep running. That's just who I am.
Storm's only getting closer, Enterprise.
Transporter room to engineering. Hemmer, I'm losing them.
Try it now.
How did you?
I am a genius.
Hemmer may not be able to see, but his other senses compensate.
Compensate? They are superior. You humans waste so much life worrying about death. The Enar believe the end only comes once you have fulfilled your purpose.
So what was your purpose?
To fix what is broken.
What is this noxious paste you're applying to our skulls?
Ground sea urchin. Trust me, this will become Federation standard. Eventually. I am Chief Medical Officer on the flagship of Starfleet. Prejudice has kept people from helping each other for centuries.
Doctor!
Disease and suffering are good. We're things of the past. I am a physician. There must be another way.
Welcome aboard, everyone.
Cadet Uhura, very happy to have you aboard.
Glad to be here.
Cadet's gotta be pretty impressive to make the cut. I hear you speak 12 languages.
37.
Wow. What's he saying?
Universal Translator isn't processing it. Uhura, do something.
That's not how linguistics works.
Starfleet would be fortunate to have an officer like you.
Who knows where I'll end up? I guess I'm still searching.
This is Nurse Chapel.
Welcome to Enterprise. Sounds like you're just the person for the job.
What job? Gonna mess with your genome.
Is it safe?
Almost every time.
I thought you might need to discuss your feelings. I feel I should have seen that coming.
It's good to get mad sometimes.
I applaud your performance.
Don't thank me. I know I'm good at my job.
Hi, I'm Anson Mount, and I play Captain Christopher Pike on Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Pretty much every day, there's a moment where I think to myself, I'm on Star Trek.
I'm Ethan Peck, and I play Mr. Spock. Coming back to the bridge of the Enterprise is thrilling, it's daunting, it's very surreal.
I'm Rebecca Romaine, and I play Una, also known as Number One. The character was originated by Majel Barrett Roddenberry in the original pilot of the original series, and now we finally get to really flesh out this character, and she's way more complex than y'all know.
Hi, my name is Celia Rose Gooding, and I am thrilled and honored to say that I will be playing Cadet Nyota Uhura. I am so excited to be stepping into this legacy.
My name is Jess Bush, and I am delighted to announce that I will be playing Nurse Christine Chapel. I feel extremely honored.
I'm Babs Alusmoko. I will be playing Dr. Mbenga. I'm ecstatic.
Hello, my name is Bruce Horak, and I'm thrilled to announce that I will be playing the character of Hemmer. I'm welling up with emotion as I say it.
My name is Christina Chong, and I play La'an Noonien Singh. I am super excited to become a part of this amazing, diverse universe.
My name is Melissa Navia, and I'm super excited to announce that I will be playing Lieutenant Erica Ortegas on Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Feels really good to finally be able to say that.
The cast that we were able to pull together for this, it's exactly the kind of people you would have hoped you'd end up with on a high wire walk like this.
Sorry to interrupt. This is your captain?
Our mission.
To chart the stars. Push the boundaries of what is known. And what is possible.
I'm standing on the surface of a comet.
I love this job.
These people, this crew, I believe we can do anything.
You wanted to seek out new life.
Go where the aliens are.
Your presence is blasphemy.
Let's talk about this. Find some
I think that went well.
Perhaps we should kiss.
That seems logical.
Maybe we don't touch anything else. Just a suggestion.
The whole future hangs in the balance.
No one can know the future. One can only follow one's instincts.
You're the best of Starfleet.
Our ability to work together, that's our greatest strength.
Let's show them what you got.
All I ever wanted since I first saw the stars was to join Starfleet.
You're the best first officer in the fleet. You're an example to all of us.
As a senior officer, I don't get to be part of the crew anymore. Oh, no, that's not because you're a senior officer. It's because you terrify people.
Battle stations!
Security breach at airlock 4. Who's backup? I'm your backup. You're fun.
Emotion is illogical. Knowledge is vital.
We have less than 1 hour before comet impact.
You do a lot of reminding people of deadlines, sir.
She does have a point, Spock.
On my world, I was forced to prove I belong. In Starfleet, I am accepted for who I am. Half human, half Vulcan. I am, quite simply, Spock.
Unauthorized trips into non-Federation space. Someone's playing fast and loose with the rules today.
Who, me? The Boy Scout. I know exactly how and when my life ends.
Knowledge of death is vital for effective leadership.
I can't stop seeing it. Will it make me hesitant? How will it live in me?
Erica, take us closer, please.
How close do you want to get? First date or third date?
Blind date.
Proceeding with caution, sir.
We have incoming.
You know how you used to brag you're going to be the best pilot ever to graduate the academy?
What's your point, sir?
Time to prove it, Lieutenant.
Now we're talking.
So what'd you think of that?
Is Spock making out with everyone because they've already set up the number one Spock chemistry. Traditionally, I think Uhura and him have something, and then there was another girl, then there was another girl.
Yeah, definitely. I believe the one that is Vulcan is T'Pring, I think is her name.
Okay, was that his wife?
Yeah, well, no, I don't think they were actually married. They were betrothed, if I remember the one TOS episode correctly.
Okay.
And that was the one where he's, I think, getting ready to go through Pon farr, and they go back to Vulcan, and in his fevered condition, he fights Captain Kirk for T'Pring. If I'm recalling all that correctly, it's been a number of years since I've seen that. So I believe that's what they're doing, is they're fleshing out the relationship with T'Pring prior to Spock serving with Captain Kirk. And then, yes, there was something with Uhura, but if I recall correctly on that as well, the closest they ever got to exploring that on the original series was like some glances and some looks back and forth over some music and stuff like that. He's there playing the Vulcan lute and she's singing and giving him the side eye and all that. And then a little bit later, the only other thing that was ever explored on the side of Uhura was in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. It was revealed that she had feelings for Scotty for a number of years. They never explored that any further. And then in Star Trek 2009, J.J. Abrams, then they much more started to explore the relationship between Spock and Uhura, but that was all based on conjecture. Nothing was ever shown in the original series aside from that one episode. So really, it's anyone's game, and I think they did a lot to try to make it their own and really fill in any plot holes and add in details that could or could not have been there, but we never just saw any of that stuff. So yeah, that's interesting. We could see maybe Spock exploring quite a few different relationships in this series, even in the first season. And Pike, we saw Pike.
Original Kirk.
What's that?
Spock's the old original Kirk.
Yeah, and Pike shirtless in bed with some woman. I didn't see who exactly it was.
Yeah, I couldn't really tell.
Yeah. And maybe something else going on with number one, too. And we have a name for her, finally, Una. I didn't catch the last name, but Una. She wants everybody to call her number one, though.
Yeah.
And we'll see, because I have a sneaking suspicion they're gonna try to put something in there with Una and maybe one of the other characters like Ortega, the new helmswoman, and wherever they go with that. I'm sure there's going to be some other things, since there's a lot of unexplored territory here.
Yeah.
And one more note that I'll elaborate a little bit further on when we actually get into Strange New Worlds. They showed this character at the beginning, Hemmer, and he looks like an Andorian with the antenna, but he's white. This was a subspecies of the Andorian homeworld called the Aenar, that was explored in a 3-part episode in Enterprise. So if you never saw Enterprise, I'm not surprised if you've never seen this before. I recognized instantly what it was, and I'm glad that they decided to flesh out this exploration of the Aenar species in Strange New Worlds. And just to give you a heads up as to what that is, and they discussed it a little bit in the trailer there, he is totally blind. Can't see a goddamn thing. They are telepathic in nature. So that's definitely going to come into play with how Hemmer deals with his job as the chief engineer of the Enterprise. And all of his other... He's like Spider-Man. All of his other senses are heightened. And then we also see Uhura there, which I had seen a video, you could probably find it on YouTube, of that young lady that is now playing Uhura on Strange New Worlds, talking about this after Nichelle Nichols had recently passed away, and what it means to be taken on that iconic role after Nichelle Nichols had made it such a big thing. And then, of course, Dr. M'Benga, who we never saw him in the original series. He was from the animated series in 1972. We saw him in that, and he was very, very infrequently explored in other aspects of TOS. But yeah, so we'll get to see him flesh out that role. And he was? Okay, then I must have missed him. I could have sworn.
Name was familiar, but I couldn't place him.
Yeah. I'd have to see where he was from. But he was a yeah, I'm not so sure though that was like an actual thing that hit prime time. It might have been from a cutting room floor thing, I think. Because you had I can't remember. We just watched the pilot episode not too long ago, and I can't remember his name, but it was an older white doctor that was the doctor of the Enterprise at that point. So it really depends, but I know that they fleshed out his character a little bit more in the animated series, and they showed him as being a doctor that was available on the Enterprise then under Kirk's command. So we'll get to see how they flesh out his character, though. All right, so that's pretty much it. That's what we're starting next week, Strange New Worlds, and they have a 10-episode season 1. Season 2 has been announced, but they don't have a release date for it. So we're not actually going to get to that before we finish season 1. It's probably not coming out until next year, so we may revisit that at a later time. So for the next 5 weeks, it'll be 2 episodes each of Strange New Worlds. All right. Alrighty. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you later. Adios.